The Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, Stephen O'Brien, convened an ad hoc principals meeting to discuss the activation of an interagency standing committee system-wide Level 3 emergency response for Yemen today. All agencies agreed to declare the Level 3 for a period of 6 months with an interim review planned for September. More than 21.1 million people, over 80% of Yemen's population, now need some form of humanitarian assistance, with 11.7 million targeted for assistance under the revised Humanitarian Response Plan. Nearly 13 million people face a food security crisis, and 9.4 million people have their access to water cut or severely disrupted, raising the risk of outbreaks of waterborne diseases, including cholera. There are reports of dengue fever and malaria in the south and areas bordering Saudi Arabia. The health system is facing imminent collapse, with the closure of at least 160 health facilities due to insecurity and lack of fuel or other critical supplies. Yes.
For Yemenis who want to flee of course, the conflict there, and there are millions of them, is there any other way other than to go to Djibouti? And those who can go to Djibouti, of course, their numbers are very limited. Did you detect any fleeing through the northern borders or the eastern borders?
Certainly there have been, we are aware of Yemenis trying to take to the high seas to escape from the country. We've been reporting on that particular influx. From our standpoint, the big worry is that many Yemenis remain trapped in a country where they are in need of aid and they have not been able to get it. As I just said at the start of the briefing, I think before you entered, that more than 21 million people, more than 4/5 of all Yemenis, are in need, are in humanitarian need. So this has become a very severe emergency, and we need to be able to support them. This is why, among other things, we need to make sure that there is a halt to the fighting and that there's sufficient humanitarian access that we can get aid to people.
There were some reports yesterday that some of those who were trying to enter Saudi Arabia as civilians were shot at the border. Is there anybody monitoring that? Has anybody succeeded in getting into Saudi Arabia? That's the longest border, of course. And if there's any way to flee, especially in the northern governorates, their only way out is Saudi Arabia.
Well, we don't have a presence at the Saudi border, so I wouldn't be able to verify that.
Farhan, there is a pattern of attacks by the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen against monuments of certain sects and certain religions. Does the United Nations have anything to say about such an attitude?
Well, we certainly hope that all the parties to the conflict will respect both religious sites and historical landmarks. And as you know, UNESCO, the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, has also raised its concerns about such sorts of attacks. So we would call on all sides to do that, and also, of course, to avoid any attacks that could further inflame sectarianism.
On the mission of Ismail Wulchek Ahmad, the envoy, is there any progress? Is he going to Sana'a soon? And do you have anything to report?
Mr. Ismail Wulchek Ahmad is in Riyadh. We do expect him to travel to Sana'a sometime within the next week or so, and we'll provide any further details. But right now, he's working to talk to as many people on either side to see what he can do to bring about some form of a ceasefire. Yes. Yes?
Yeah. Saudi Arabia has the counterterrorism office, United Nations counterterrorism office. In the meantime, they also finance and operate stations that incite to sectarianism and terrorism, the same ideology they are fighting. Many of these stations are based in Saudi Arabia, others are in London and other parts of the Middle East. Is there any plan to curtail such incitement and cause the same ideology of ISIS is propagated through these stations?
Well, first of all, that's really more an editorial comment than a question. So I don't necessarily agree with the expression of your opinion. Although, of course, you're free to express it. Regardless, of course, we call on all states to reject sectarianism and to abide by the values of tolerance that are enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and we do so in this case as well.